Welcome back. Today we're going to go through the paleo diet. I would consider the diet that doesn't get enough credit. So Jeff, let's start with, what does the paleo diet consist of?
It was actually built around the Paleolithic times, like where we used to go and hunt and gather and, just whatever, if you catch it and kill it, you eat it, so that was kind of the premise of it. Over the years, it's become a lot mainstream, especially when CrossFit was like in its height and where it was the thing to do. It's like, that was the diet plan that I think, was kind of pushed through all the CrossFit community. And it's actually a relatively healthy plan. Trying to limit a lot of the processed foods. The thing is, like grains and dairy, you try to limit some of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's generally a healthy plan, but you still have some dietary restrictions. So like all plans, like they could be good, but they also have things that if you're not filling the gaps on. So, I feel like this one's a little bit more universal. I think you're going to have less deficiencies when it comes to certain nutrients. I think you're going to have less performance issues. And that's why the CrossFit community picked it up for more physical activity.
Yeah. I think the reason it doesn't get enough credit is because it's one of the harder ones to stick to, right? Where it's in a simplified terms, it's just you eat whole foods. You don't eat processed foods.
In the world we live today, it's like
98% processed foods.
Crap.
So in order to stick to a paleo diet, it takes a lot of cooking, a lot of meal prep, a lot of no's, like when you're out to dinner. And it's something tough to maintain, but outside of maybe the Mediterranean diet, like you said, for cardiovascular reasons, this is probably one of the healthier diets out there. I would say from an inflammatory standpoint as well. So let's go through the pros. Let's go through the pros.
So obviously first we just said, like, if you get away from some of the processed garbage, inflammation goes down. So you're probably going to be better from a cellular level. Less inflammation, less cellular dysfunction. So that's probably the biggest one. Nutrient dense food, I think that's going to be able to, you're going to have a good quality amount of protein, things to fuel your system, on physical activity.
It's big on, because like you're not getting gluten and dairy.
Yeah.
Right. And I think people don't,
which are common inflammatory markers, wheat, dairy, gluten, right?
And it also, I think another thing doesn't get talked about enough is how gluten and dairy affect your whole digestive system. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Well, so wheat, dairy, and gluten, I think I've said this before, is like I could do an all-cat test, which is basically a food sensitivity test. If I was to take 100 people, majority of them are going to come up mild, moderate, severe as far as sensitivities. So it's not allergies, but like there's foods that we eat, and wheat, dairy, and gluten, for almost everybody, we have some basically sensitivity to it. So it's looking at your blood under a microscope, showing how big of an inflammation reaction happens, or a reaction that happens into the blood. And so, if most people would cut back on wheat, dairy, gluten for 30 days and then introduce it individually, you would actually see the difference. Most people are eating it all the time. And so we eat those types of food and we are like, I'm fine, I'm good. I don't know there's any problem. But if you were to take it away and put it back in, now some people, it's going to kick them in the gut. My wife is not allergic to gluten, but she has a severe sensitivity to it. And she'll be bent over and ready to go to the bathroom, whereas I do fine with gluten, but I do notice it might not turn into a stomach ache, but then you're super gassy. Yep. You're freaking farting up a storm. Yep.
Even on a lesser extent too, is I think people notice, like what I know, cause I did no gluten for 30 days, and your skin, your hair, like all these little things that you never think of, like your skin clears up. Like if you have dry skin, goes away. Your hair starts coming back more like strong. And I think the biggest problem with diets like this, because what I experienced when I did it for the first time, you walk into the grocery store and you're like, I can't eat anything. Like you're walking up and down the aisles. It's like, that has gluten, this has gluten, that has dairy. It's like, it's so taxing on you. Like mentally, mentally, it's like you have to be so rigid, so disciplined. You have to plan so far in advance in order to do this. Unfortunately, just with society today and how our food is. But I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. And the other thing is, it is super hard to stick to. Like the first 2 weeks, it was a battle every day. I had to really think. You got to read every label. You got to know how to read food labels, which is a whole nother thing. But once you get past like, I'd say 10 to 14 days, like you don't want to eat any other way. Like you feel so good. You don't crave you don't crave the sugar. You don't crave the carbs. Like you want to eat that way. So it's really just pushing past days 10 to 14 and you have to have a good plan.
But I think, that's a perfect point, but also too, with any type of common mainstream plan that has some restrictions, if it's completely opposite of what you're used to, it's going to be tough for 14 days or 20 days. So it's, I think a lot of people kind of have like, they put the horse blinders on and they get on a plan that could be a really good plan, but they look at like, oh my God, this is all I get. And this is going to be the rest of my life. And like, I would say you got to plan ahead. Even if you had to take a week to prep for the thing you're going to start, that'll take a lot of the anxiety and a lot of the, but the problem is sometimes when people delay it and then they just don't start it. Right.
Yep.
So, but I always say like when you're about to do a whole overall on a plan, like look at, understand it and plan for a week before you even do it, cause then it'll take that first 2 weeks won't feel like a uphill, battle. So,
yeah. And it is restrictive. And so going into the cons is like, it's a super restrictive diet and like you can miss out on other healthy foods on something like this because you're so rigid. So whether that be like was it legumes and whatever it is, but what are some other oats? Yeah, what are some other cons of going towards paleo that people might experience?
I think because it's so rigid, some people feel like they isolate themselves. We've talked about orthorexia where it's like, you don't want to go here because the water's not filtered and you don't want to eat this because it's processed and you don't want to, I can't have these types of foods. So like you almost get to a point where you just get so consumed by trying to adhere to the plan and then it creates other problems. So that's a big one is the, and I would say out of all plans, that's probably one of the bigger ones just because the restrictiveness. So like you feel like you can't have a social life or you can't go certain places because you don't know.
And this is, I would, again, out of all of them, it would be one of the more time consuming ones.
Yeah.
Like if you got to eat all whole foods, you have to cook them.
Yep.
So it's like now you're back to cooking every day.
Expensive. That's the thing. I think that most people between that being rigid and that also like you don't have to spend top dollar on certain things, but most people, if they're already going that far, they're going to try to get better quality grass fed, grass finished, like organic, non-GMO, like next thing you know, they're like, holy crap, this is a lot of money because also I'm not eating out and depends on the person. I've said it before is, do a cost analysis of what you spend now and then do a cost analysis on what a plan looks like. Most plans are usually gonna be cheaper. Yeah. This plan might go toe to toe, but if you're someone who's eating out quite a bit and going and crushing dinner 3 nights a week, like you're gonna save money.
Yep. And I would say it's definitely cheaper on how most people eat today. Like even myself, like I eat Chipotle probably 23 days of the month. And it's like,
yeah, it's like,
I'm spending a lot of money.
It's like 3 G's a month.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So it's just the idea that it's more expensive that I think people just stick to that.
Yeah.
It's probably not. And even if it is a little more expensive, like look at your benefits.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to be way more healthy. You're not going to have as many doctor bills.
Yep.
You're not going to be sick as much. You're not going to.
Well, you're either, and I always say it, and it's cliche, and everyone, you either pay now or you're going to pay later.
100%.
And I'll tell you, I'd rather pay now and feel better, function better, and ultimately, probably I'm going to save some money on the back end by not having some health issues that come up that you're going to either just not have a good quality of life, or you're going to spend the money to try to get your health back.
Yeah. And this is another one of those diets that especially for training, you have to supplement with like a carb blend.
Yeah.
You need to fill in the carb gaps for the training. So, and it's funny that because we're going through all these diets and like you see a lot of the same deficiencies across the board, where it's like all of these diets are just an iteration of another one, and they all have they all have pros, they all have cons. It's just, again, I keep saying it.
I'm going to come out with my name is Jeff diet.
Yeah.
My name is Jeff. And it's going to be, we'll just put them all together in a melting pot and adjust it. No, I mean but you really, I feel like now more than ever, you have these base diets that we're talking about that have kind of been like pillars or staples as the most common ones that have done well. but then you have now people putting their spins on every single thing. And it's just like, I think,
well, and too, like, again, where it's so different per person, where it's like this diet will allow you to supplement some carbs that you would get from like a rice or an oats with fruit. Like you can eat fruit with this. So like if you need, a lot of people don't realize that fruit has plenty of carbs in it. If you
well, and I'll say too, like fruit's fructose. So fruit goes to the liver. You know, performance wise, you can perform, but you know, I would say like on this diet, probably one of the big carbs, if I had to choose one, would be sweet potatoes.
Yep.
That would be, I like them, one, but two, that's a good quality carbohydrate. It's just more complex carbohydrate. So you are going to be limited on some of the good quality complex carbs on this.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I don't think the CrossFit community has still condoned paleo. I mean, I
don't think there is a CrossFit community anymore.
Well, I mean, now you got Hydrox or whatever it's called, right? Hydrox,
It's a new CrossFit.
Yeah. It's like, adjusted. It's like, all right, we're going to take this thing that a lot of people got injured on and let's adjust it so they get less injured.
No. Yeah, that is literally what Hydrox is.
I mean, but with all things, great. At least it's evolving, and people are getting smarter and they're making better choices. It's just like any other diet plan. Like if you like the style, look at it, but how can you make it better and how can you make it fit?
Yeah. So how would we make it better?
You know, it depends on where you're coming from. I would still always prioritize protein. If you're someone physically active, you're definitely making sure you're getting enough carbohydrates to support
healthy carbs.
Performance, healthy carbs. Sweet potatoes, stuff like that. From a nutrient side, it's kind of got a good amount of stuff. It's, you know, it's up there with the Mediterranean diet when it comes to not too many gaps. I mean, you could, if you're eating fish and fatty fish, you know, then you might not have to supplement omega. I would say most plants supplement omega or good quality EPA, DHA. Always put a multivitamin in just to fill the gaps. It's kind of one of those things like, you know, you don't have to go overkill with it, but whatever you don't use, you're going to excrete.
Yeah. I think this is a good diet if you subscribe to like the 80-20.
Yeah.
Like this is a great diet to go 80 on. Just it's 80% whole foods, 80% healthy carbs. And then when you are going to go to the 20, you still have that room. So it's not as structured, not as rigid where you're not fully in on this.
Yeah. I mean, listen, find options that maybe, because to live solely non-processed foods, like in the world we live is
almost impossible.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I could, but
it sucks.
It would suck.
Yeah.
So
I mean, every almost.
And I look in the grand scheme of things, like some of the stuff that is processed, like in the grand scheme, in mass amounts would be bad, but in the small amounts, not so much. So
yeah, I think that pretty much covers paleo. Is there anything you would add?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not doing, like, it's hard because you're not gonna have like good probiotics or pre and probiotics. So you could add something like seed, or you could do like kefir. You know, like I think that's one that you could add, and more fermented foods in
dairy.
general. Yeah. I mean, honestly, all in all, it's, you know, I feel like that was another cultish following that was brought more so through CrossFit. And it's just like either you're on the paleo team or you're on the vegan team or you're on the carnivore team. It's just like, you know, but like I said, I think the goal of this is find a plan that fits what you're going to do. I always say, what foods do you like?
Yeah.
What foods would you eat? And so pretty quick, you could pick the type of style if you want something, if you don't want to really think too much. And then, you know, make sure it's sequenced right. And then just get at it. You know, start a plan no matter what. If it's paleo or nothing, let's go paleo, you know, or at least try to go as good as possible as you can.
Right. 80-20.
You know, I always say, be on a plan, even if you're not trying to lose weight, be on a plan, start putting some like kind of attention to what you eat, because that's the biggest thing that's going to give you the biggest ROI in your life.
Yeah. So if you have questions about paleo, drop them down below. Sorry to the CrossFitters. Not really. Subscribe. We're going to keep going through the diets and trying to sort through all the bullshit that's out there. So we'll see you next week.
Peace.